That's quite big. Impressive.
What an interesting summer that we have this year. The 5 stars both feel very safe to me, like they don't do anything super nutty, dummy, broken. They're just really good servants, but all of the 4 stars are very interesting. And in this video, we're going to talk about Summer Barghest, who is just a fun servant to use. And when I say fun, that doesn't mean she's bad or anything. Don't misunderstand me. She is a very solid servant, but I'm actually having a lot of fun using this servant. I'm hoping I could pull my own so I can actually use her with like my own double Castoria setup, but just playing around with like some friends Summer Barghest, this is a very, very fun servant who oddly enough got Melusine's niche on her kit instead of Melusine getting the like NP changing thing herself. But you know what, it's whatever. It's really fun on Barghest and her whole kit is just generally rather solid, so we're going to talk about her in today's video. But before that, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel, as your boy is going to be uploading FGO content every single day, sometimes even twice a day if there's just that much news going down. Also, if you want to see me play FGO, I generally go live every weekday at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, although that might get a little wonky for the next week or two because I am going to be going on vacation. I'm going to try to do like, I don't know, like tier list or something still on Twitch. Going to try to stream whenever I can, but obviously, you know, I'm going to prioritize my vacation and everything, but I'll still try to do like FGO tier list and stuff along those lines. But enough about that. Let's start talking about Summer Barghest. So let's start off with her hits and what her actual kit is looking like. Now, as you would expect for Barghest, something I do want to go ahead and just point out, she has ridiculously high HP because, I mean, look at her. She is dummy thick, but her attack is a little bit low, but don't worry. As a single target, she can actually put out some pretty decent damage. As an AoE servant, you might want to go for NP like 2 or 3, but I expect if you're going to be going hard in the paint on these banners, you're probably going to secure like 2 to 3 copies anyway, so that really shouldn't be that much of an issue. And she does hit around the level as an AoE around, say, like Zenobia at NP1, like they're very close on that front. And as someone who has used NP1 Zenobia a lot, you can kind of get the job done with that. It's not the most pretty thing to do. It can get a little, you know, iffy sometimes, but it's still usable. You just might struggle a little bit, but Black Grail will definitely help the servant out a lot. And thank goodness she is an art servant, because that means you can pair with Castoria, who could automatically get her up to 100% of her NP. Now, her NP gain is actually a little bit low at only 0.41%, and she does only have 4 hits on an AoE NP. So sometimes it might be a little bit of a struggle with her damage being a little bit lower. Like, ironically enough, her hits and her NP gain are very similar to the Summer Melusine that we got, but Melusine does do a bit more damage, so she has a little bit more leniency on that. Barghest doesn't do as much damage, but again, Black Grail and stuff, and you know, if you believe hard enough, you can get her to loop, right? Again, if you can get people like Zenobia to loop, you can probably get Barghest to loop. Aside from that, the actual hits on her kit are pretty solid. 4 hits on both of her quick cards with a decent 7.9% star gen. Not the craziest thing, but her natural star weight is really high, so she really shouldn't have to like fight Castoria or your Tamamos or your Lady Avalons for any of those stars. And if you're using Lady Avalon, she'll probably be providing stars anyway, so she really shouldn't have to fight in that scenario either. Her arts cards are pretty decent at 4 hits a pop, and she does have that 5-hit extra attack, which we obviously like to see. I know that Lasengul over here is kind of shafting me on the Summer Castoria banner, but you know it's going to be all fine if you go ahead and just give me Summer Barghest after I, you know, do eventually pull Summer Castoria, fingers crossed. But let's start moving into some of these skills. Starting off with their first skill, this one is actually a little bit interesting. So off rip, it's going to be giving her a 30% attack buff for 3 turns, and it's going to be giving her a 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. That in and of itself is rather solid. Lord knows she does need those larger attack buffs because her natural attack is not as high. And the 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns, that's basically the waiver crit damage buff to kind of give you a little perspective of just how good that's actually going to be. But then she has this on attack buff. It is called the weakling protection buff. So I guess they're just really playing into, you know what, Barghest is absolutely huge. You could be mommy's good little boy. I guess they're really just playing into that one with Barghest over here. But every time she attacks, she recovers the entire party's HP by 500 when she normal attacks, which I do like. One of the things that I do criticize Castoria for, one of the very, very few things I criticize her for, the one thing she's lacking is HP recovery. So if you're doing a double Castoria setup, this actually gives your party some form of recovery, which I do like. But if you're going to be using her with 3-star or lower rarity servants, she gets 20% more attack for 3 turns, and she regenerates 10 stars every single turn for 3 turns. So you almost get a little bit of extra value if you want to bring, say, Zhu or something, who is a very solid kind of baby Castoria that is a 3-star alter ego art support. If you want to bring her, you actually get a little bit more value for Barghest. Now, it doesn't help her AoE damage all like that much, but it does help her single target damage look really good. She'll actually start doing more damage than like Squirtoria, for instance. So that is really, really good. I do kind of like they had this interesting gimmick kind of built into her kit. And again, just very fun if you want to experiment with things that are not double Castoria or Lady Avalon or something like that. It does make me wish that they made Hans's buff for the anniversary a little bit better, so you're more incentivized to use like a really strong like low star caster. But again, we do have Zhu who just works very, very well with Barghest, and who knows, maybe we'll also get just another really, really strong low rarity support servant. I mean, this also works for people like Mash and stuff as well. It's just very, very nice for that. Moving over to her second skill, again, just a nice little skill they gave her. It gives her a 30% battery, which she probably will need if you're going to be doing farming, because again, because her attack is a little bit lower, getting that overkill might not be as easy if you're using her at, say, like NP1 or NP2, especially without Black Grail. So this can give her a little bit of wiggle room. Or if you're going to be using her as a single target servant, it actually does give her a little bit of a niche if you need her to take out like large enemies in like 90+ nodes or something like that. If there's just some random big one enemy on like a node, you could take them out. The battery does help out with that. She gives the entire party invincibility except herself, which, you know, art setups really weren't hurting for survivability, but you know, with Barghest, they're even harder to take down, because then she's also going to give them a 3k heal, and she's going to reduce the party's skill cooldown, unfortunately, except herself by 1, which again, very, very good. You can get back onto your Castoria skills a little bit easier, Lady Avalon skills a little bit easier, and God forbid you are using Tamamo, it just means getting your skill cooldowns is that much easier. Again, just a very fun servant to have in the party, because this skill just makes your team work a little bit better. Finally, there's her third skill. This is what allows her to change her NP damage type. Now, thankfully, it is optional. If you want to use her as a farmer, you do not have to swap to being a single target, because you are going to want to get that 30% NP damage, which is very strong, because like I've said, art setups can work with Oberon very, very well, because they love to use Black Grail, and when an art servant gives themselves their own NP damage buff, they work even better with Oberon, because Oberon loves it when you just have these massive NP damage buffs. And so she's going to be a lot better if you actually do have Oberon on your account. Unfortunately, I don't have Oberon on JP, so I can't really use this full power Barghest setup. But if you do have Barghest and you do have Oberon, she does work a lot better. She also gives herself the super large trait, because we got some fan art or whatever from like a little art book where she's like as big as a skyscraper or something. I don't know. She's like a firefighter or something in the event. So she just becomes absolutely ginormous, which I think is hilarious. Finally, we move over to the NP, which they both actually do the exact same thing. The only thing that changes between the AoE NP and the single target NP is obviously the damage scaling, because if your single target NP was still doing AoE scaling, that would not be very, very good. Or if your AoE like NP was doing single target damage scaling, that would be really absurd. That'd be really, really broken. But she's going to remove the entire enemy's offensive buffs, and again, because she is a firefighter, if they have any burns or anything on them, she'll remove that off of them. So I don't know, don't use her with like Yang or something in the team comp, because that'll be a little conflicting. It's really not going to come up all that much. Like, she doesn't have like a burn special damage mod or anything, so it really shouldn't conflict with anything. And then she's also going to give herself a 20% arts buff on her overcharge over there. Although if you're going to be using her with, say, Castories and stuff who can kind of fire their own NP, you can get this up to like a 25 to 30% if you want to fire a couple of the Castoria NPs in front of her own to get that attack buff and buff her own overcharge, which is nice. Unfortunately, it doesn't stack. I really did wish that this was going to be like a stacking buff, because it would kind of help her as she goes through the different nodes to get higher and higher NP gain, kind of like, say, Jason or Shiro Muramasa, right? As they stack that arts buff, they get better and better at looping, and their damage starts to go up in between nodes, but it's still fine. She's a very fun servant to use, and as you can see, that should be flashing up right now. Her single target damage is really, really good. Even without the 3-star in the party, she's like right there with Squirtoria, right? Just right on par with her, but she has a lot more, I would say, team utility, and so I'd probably prefer to use her over Squirtoria, honestly, just because She has that utility of being able to like give the party HP, give them invincibility, lower skill cooldown, just very, very nice things. But if you do want to bring, say, like a Mash, a Jufu, something like that, you can see that her damage goes all the way up to 45k, getting very, very close to Emiya Alter. And again, Emiya Alter is a very like straightforward kind of basic unit, so I'd probably just bring Barghest any day of the week. Now, unfortunately, the AoE damage should be showing somewhere around here. Isn't all that great at NP1, but realistically, neither is like John Archer or Zenobia's damage at NP1. Like, I don't know what it is with all the arts, AoE archers that we have, right? Their NP1 damage is not super great. But if you do secure like a second or third copy, which is very nice for Barghest because they buff the 4-star rates over on JP, so it should be theoretically easier. You know, I'm not going to say that like, oh, it's going to be that much easier to get a, 4-star. Let's remind ourselves, they're still 4-star servants. They're still going to be a little difficult to get. But if you can secure a couple of extra copies, you can see that her damage starts to get a bit more respectable. Although, as you can see, she doesn't seem to get like as much of a buff from the AoE damage scaling on bringing like a 3-star or something. So I don't know, just bring double Castoria if you're going to use her as a farmer and just slap on a Black Grail, I don't know, plug suit in Oberon, you'll be fine. You can definitely make it work if you're determined enough. I know that if I had Barghest, I'd be doing everything I can to make the farming work. But overall, very, very fun servant to use. Is she like game breaking or anything? No, not really, but she doesn't have to be. She's solid enough. I find her very fun to use, and I'm hoping that they will just give me Summer Castoria soon so I can just start pulling on this banner and hopefully snag me a copy of Barghest, because for me, Barghest is the one on that banner that I'm kind of like the most excited for. You know, Melusine is very, very good. She's strong, but again, nothing super special. Just a very, very strong unit just in general, right? Barghest, I have a lot of fun using her. I think she's super, super cool to use, and I love the swapping NP and everything. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.